This is the Crosman 2240. It's a single shot CO2 powered bolt action pistol. I'd always fancied one because I quite like modding stuff, and these are a great sort of base to do a bit of sort of DIY mods yourself. Out of the box or the packet, it's a cracking little single shot pistol. It is quite powerful. It's around the 5 feet-pounds mark. So it's just sort of getting under the UK legal power for pistol, which is 6 feet-pounds. You've got to be careful when you mod these that you don't go over, because then it becomes a firearm. So yeah, always when modding air rifles, pistols, just be mindful that you increase the power. You could be sort of going outside of what is deemed to be, you know, a lawful air pistol or rifle. The 2240 does come with some cheap, nasty parts. The grips look good. I like them. They look nice, but as you can hear, they are just cheap, nasty, brittle plastic. I think if they're like rubberized, they would have been nicer. I would have kept them, but they went. And I got these. They're quite cheap. They were 18 quid. They weren't finished, so I just sort of gave them a little bit of a sand down and stained and varnished them. I didn't varnish them. I oiled them. You know, I stained and oiled them. They come out quite nice. You can make your own, but as you can see, you have to sort of be careful when you're making your own, not completely flat. So you've got to worry about that little bit there. And it's quite thin there on that edge. And I thought if I make my own, they're going to be really chunky sort of grips. So I didn't want to do that. And I thought for the price, 18 quid, just buy them, stain them, oil them, chuck them on. The other bits and pieces I changed, which most sort of modders do, is the breech. This is steel breech, and the barrel goes down to about here, so it's nice and secure here. And being a steel breech, it's also got a rail on there, so you can fit optics if you want to. That's a very easy sort of thing to fit. That's a standard breech there. As you can see, it's shorter, and the barrel literally just like 1 centimetre is being held there. It didn't leak, but there was a little bit of movement in the barrel, whereas this makes it a lot more sort of rigid. You can have it free floating as well. I changed the barrel band. That's a standard one. It's all right. It's metal, but I thought if I'm going to sort of bling it up, I'll change the barrel band. But with this breech, you don't need it. So you could have a free floating barrel, which helps with resonance. You always get a little bit of resonance with any kind of pistol rifle, but I just think with that shorter a barrel, it doesn't make much difference. I think if I'd have gone for the extended, you know, longer barrel, I probably would just free floated it. But no, I quite like that on there. Just holds it all together quite nicely. The other thing I changed was the breech seal. So that's a standard breech seal there, and the one end just goes straight into the breech with no seal, and then you have a seal underneath going to the lower tube. It's also quite a sort of narrow opening, and in the other picture you can see the new breech seal I put in there, which is it's rubber sleeved, so you've got a rubber seal top and bottom, and you can't see it because it gets nice and tight, but where it is in there, it's sealed both ends with rubber. What else did I change? Oh yeah, like I said, I mentioned the barrel band. Oh yeah, the screw cap, end cap, I just put a brass one on there just to keep with the brass theme. Optics, I'm not going to bother. I quite like open sights in a pistol. I changed the front sight. It's alright, I mean it was okay. I thought about putting a dab of paint on there, but that wasn't very expensive. I think it was about 5 quid or something. So we've got a fibre optic one there, which is much nicer, especially outside when it's bright. That really does sort of reflect the light. Other brass bits, the end cap for the lower, yeah, I got a brass one of them. I think that was about 9 quid. So they're not cheap, but they're lovely machined parts. In here you've got the hammer spring. I haven't touched the piercing rod or the chamber. It's just the valve has sort of been changed here, the seal here. The spring, I did put because one of those springs goes in there with the end cap. That's the hammer spring, and the idea is that when you pull the trigger, that just throws forward the hammer, which then throws forward, which is the piercing rod, and it's got the seal opening to allow the CO2 to come into the breech. I put it on standard, and straight away, within a couple of shots, it just jammed. So I tried to release the CO2 to sort it out, and I couldn't, because the powlet was stuck in there. What's happened is so much force behind that spring has thrown it forward, gone straight into the powlet and jammed. It's got stuck. There's ways of modding the needle so that doesn't happen, but once again you're looking at overpowering the pistol, which I don't want to do. So I managed to drill the CO2 powlet carefully. CO2 escaped, got a screwdriver in it, forced it out, and then I went back to the spring and I cut it down. I cut 2 rings off the high power spring, put it back together again, had no problems. I was getting about 25 to 24 shots with that high power spring. Standard you get about 50 shots. So I'd lost half the CO2 just by overpowering it. We've cut a couple of rings off that hammer spring. I've gone back up to about 35 shots, which is what I want. That's sort of the power to shot ratio that I'm happy with. So those are the bits and pieces that I've put on there. The other thing I did is I just got a little bit of fluorescent paint, and using a cocktail stick, put a couple of blobs on the foresight, the rear sight, and like I say, you can't really tell. It lines up really well. Yeah, all in all, very happy with it. With the steel breech, there's one little screw there, Allen bolt. That's it. It's tiny. You've got to be careful when you tap the Allen bolt, Allen key into it, that it's all the way in, wiggle it in, because if you round that off, you end up drilling it out, which is a pain. And what holds this breech on, it's literally just one screw here. The foresight or rear sight screw goes down through there into this. That holds the breech on, and actually the back of the trigger casing there. That tiny little screw there is holding that breech on there. So if it was free floating, all that's holding that breech on is those 2 screws, that little Allen screw bolt there, and nothing up here. So that's why I quite like to have the barrel band as well, just to sort of keep everything nice and tight there. The only little other mod I did was underneath the grip, you can see the trigger spring, which gives you the tension on your trigger. It's quite a stiff trigger. It's not too bad, but just by compressing the spring down, just to sort of shorten it a little bit. Don't overdo it. You can always re-stretch it if you overdo it. And messing about a bit, I got it just right. So I haven't done the poundage, but the trigger pull on this is nice. It's not too stiff. It's not too weak either. The other thing is, if you over weaken it, you can have a hair trigger, which can be dangerous. And the other thing is, you need to actually throw back up the trigger mechanism to hook back behind, you know, the bolt action. Otherwise, that won't happen because it won't be thrown up to catch on the hammer, which is in there. Right, well, that's it. I will do a shooting review when it's not so wet and windy out there. I'm really pleased with it. I don't think I'll be doing anything more to it. Famous last words. Actually, I might get a brass trigger. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll have a shooting video review later on.